Hello, I'm Steve Carlisle. Welcome to the second in this series of videos on the PSR rules. And this one is particularly about how the PSR rules affect Leeds United and what our current PSR position is, and what things we know about our current position and what things we don't know yet about our current PSR position. So I was asked to make another one of these videos by somebody. I think he wanted me to make another one. So I've made it anyway. I thought, you might be interested. It's going to be a shorter one than the last one, probably about 10 minutes. So let's have a start and have a look at what our PSR position is, what position we're in at Leeds United, and what our PSR allowance is for 2025-26. How much do we have in our PSR allowance for 2025-26? Now remember, your PSR allowance is based on a rolling 3-year period. So in our 2025-26 allowance, we've got 3 elements. First of all, we've got a championship element from the year 2023-24. The championship, the maximum loss in the championship under the football fair play rules, as they're called there, is 13 million. So we're allowed to make 13 million loss for 2023-24. And then we were also in the championship in 2024-25. The season just ended. Remember, the financial year hasn't finished yet. The financial year doesn't finish till the 30th of June. And I'm recording this on the 12th of June, by the way, 2025. So we were allowed another 13 million loss for 24-25. And the third of that rolling 3-year period, which will be in from the start of July this year, from the start of July 25, we'll be allowed a 35 million loss because we'd now be under the PSR rules in the English Premier League. So our total allowable loss for that 3-year rolling period is 61 million. Now I've heard that explained a few times, including once on TV by a pundit, and they seem to make a very convoluted version of that, but they came back to 61 million as well. That's how the 61 million is calculated. The English Premier League have also confirmed that that is how it should be calculated. That's the correct figure, and that's how you get to it. And by the way, if we go forward to 26-27, because this is a rolling 3 years that we're always dealing with, in 26-27, as you can see down there, what will happen is the 2023-24 year end will drop out of the 3-year period. And so we'll have 2024-25, allowable loss of 13 million because we were still in the championship then. And then we'll have 2 years from 25-26 and 26-27 of the 35 million loss, assuming that is that we're still in the Premier League in 2026-27. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we will be. So that's how it works. And then if you went forward to 2027-28, then we'd have 3 years in the English Premier League, hopefully again, and we'd be allowed to have the full 105 million in our rolling 3-year period. So that's how it works. That's how our maximum allowable loss is calculated. How are we actually doing though at Leeds United? How are we doing? How did we do in 23-24, 24-25, and so on? Well, how we're actually doing, we only actually know about 1 year. The only year we actually know about for which any accounts have been filed officially at Companies House is for the 2023-24 season. And I've got a copy of those accounts, and they tell me that we made a 60.8 million loss just for that 1 year. Now, remember, it's the loss before tax that's the basis of our PSR figure. We are allowed to adjust it slightly, as I'll show you in a minute, but we're already somewhere close to the 61 million just for 1 year. We've already made a 61 million loss. We can offset that if we make a profit in the next 2 years, but we're selling very close to the wind, let's just say that. Now, what we're allowed to do with that 60.8 million loss, as I said, that's not the actual PSR figure, because what the championship allow you to do and what the EPL also allow you to do, they're both rules run in parallel, although they have different names, football fair play and profit and sustainability rules. They work the same way with different amounts. What you're allowed to do to your profit before tax or loss before tax is you're allowed to add back any costs in that 60.8 million that relate to certain items. So those items include any community spending that you've done on community support, any spending you've done on youth development, any spending you've done on ladies football, and any spending you've done on infrastructure costs, and that's things like repairs. It wouldn't cover building a new stadium, but it would cover painting the toilets in the stadium, as they did in my little section of the West Stand a few years ago. Made them smell very lovely. Well, compared to what it smelled like before anyway. So you're allowed to add those costs back. So we don't actually know how much add back we were allowed before we got to our actual PSR figure, but it won't have been much. It may have been 1 million, it might have been 2 million, it might have been 3 million, it could have been anything. Those figures aren't publicly available. But our PSR figure will be the 60.8 million loss with some of those costs I've just mentioned added back. So we'll probably be looking somewhere in the high 50 millions worth of loss, maybe 59 million, 58 million, something like that. So we're already very close to our 3-year total just in 1 year. So what did we do in 2024-25? Well, as I said, 2025, the accounting year hasn't yet finished as I speak on the 12th of June 25. It will finish in a couple of weeks' time. We won't know though as fans until March 26 what those actual figures are, because legally Leeds United Football Club Limited, as a private limited company, I know that sounds a bit strange, but they are a private limited company. They have 9 months before they have to make their accounts publicly available and publish them at Companies House so everybody can see them. So they won't be published until the end of March 26. Now, what we do know about 24-25 is that we did have high level of player sales. I just consulted Transfer Market, which is the only sort of sensible figure I can find, and it says that we sold players for a gross amount of over 160 million. That won't be absolutely accurate, but let's say it's somewhere in that region. That will have given us profit. Well, the profit won't have been the 162 million because we'll have to balance that against what the player book values were at that time, the players' values in our balance sheet. But we will have made a large profit on player sales, and hopefully for 2024-25, we will have made some form of profit. We will have need to have done, so that number one, we've got some chance going forward for this year so that we can put our player costs through our P&L for this year. And also, so we met the championship rules, because remember, the championship, you're only allowed an average of 13 million each year as a loss. And our loss for 23-24, our first season in the Champo, was nearly 61 million, maybe a bit less, maybe reduced a little bit with the PSR add backs, but still be sailing close to the wind, very close to the wind there. So hopefully we've made a profit for that. What about 25-26? Well, 25-26, we don't know what we're going to make. We've no idea. We haven't even started the financial year yet. But what we do know is we'll have a big jump in revenue. If we look at what was happening to Leeds in the last 2 seasons in the Premier League, that's the 2022-23 and the 21-22 seasons, we had an income, a revenue of almost 200 million, around about 189, 190 million each of those 2 years. And then that fell to the 127, I think it was, in the 2023-24 season when we went back to the championship. So hopefully we'll jump back up to somewhere around 200 million in the 25-26 season with our revenue. Obviously our costs will go up a little bit as well, because we'll be paying more money for things. Because we'll be selling more shirts, we'll have to buy shirts. Because we'll be selling more food, we'll have to buy food. But we will hopefully be in with a better chance of making a decent profit or a small loss. That will allow us to buy more players, and then we'll have the wages of those players plus the amortized cost of those players. Remember how it works. If we buy a player for 30 million on a 3-year contract, then we'll have to put a 10 million cost through our profit and loss account to go against our PSR figure. And that's how the amortization works. If you want to know more about that, go back to the first video if you haven't already watched it. But who would be an accountant? Yeah, who would be an accountant at Leeds United? We've got a terrible start point in 23-24. Our overall loss for those 3 years can be a total of 61 million, our PSR loss. So, unless we had a really fantastic 2024-25 season, it will be very tight this year. Yeah, remember to fit in with that overall 61 million for those 3 years. That's what we're facing. That's the reality of the situation. We do still have 150 million in the bank, but if we spend it and we incur player costs, they will hit us in our PSR calculations, in our profit before tax. And we will have to be very, very careful. We'll have to do the sums very, very carefully, particularly their budget and predictions for 2025-26. So that's the position we find ourselves in, folks. I can't do anything about it. I can't change the reality. That's where we are at Leeds United Football Club. The one great hope we have is that we had an absolutely banging profitable season in 2024-25. So let's everybody keep our fingers crossed for that. They know back at the club, they know how they're doing. They'll get on with the business, and I'm sure they'll do whatever they can to make us as successful as we can. There you go. That's the end of today. I know it's been too short, hasn't it? So I'm going to stop there and say goodbye. Goodbye for now. Bye.